Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Bob. Good morning to everybody joining us on the live stream this morning. I hope you have all had a wonderful holiday weekend. My name is Alex Kolaitzi. I am the Director of Music here at UU Miami. Everyone joining us on the live stream this morning, please feel free to grab a candle or a chalice that you can light with us when we light the chalice this morning later in our service. Our first hymn together this morning will be in the gray hymnal. It is number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We will sing it through 3 times. Please feel free to stand in body or spirit and join in the singing. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, 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 whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, 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 whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Good morning. I'm sorry? Good morning. That's more like it. Welcome to our multi-platform space here at Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami, or as we affectionately call it, UU Miami. As a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA, we bring a liberal religious voice to the great city of Miami. I am Derrick Mustelier. I am your guest preacher for this morning. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I am a white, non-binary, assigned male at birth. I am wearing a long white robe that doesn't quite fit, and a purple, green, and white scarf, which happen to be the colors of the genderqueer flag. And I'm wearing glasses, I am shaved bald, I have a big bushy beard, and yeah, that's me. Up on the chancel, we have Joseph Taleda, our pianist, and Alex Kolaitzi, our music director. UU Miami wants to acknowledge that we gather on the traditional land of the Tequesta, the Seminole, and the Miccosukee people, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. May we continue to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. And I invite you to think about what this acknowledgement means to you and how you might honor it in your life. UU Miami is a community of brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers, and we invite you to learn more about us. You can go to our Facebook, our Instagram, LinkedIn, or any of our web pages, or you can call or email Reverend Tom at minister@uumiami.org for more information. And if you have attended our services a few times, we'd love it if you would consider becoming a member of the congregation, and Reverend Tom will more than happily talk to you about membership.
It is the custom in Unitarian Universalist congregations to begin our time together with the lighting of the chalice, a symbol of our religious tradition. Please join me in our chalice lighting words written by Unitarian Universalist, minister, scholar, and author Rebecca Parker. With the kindling of this flame, we reaffirm our commitment to accept life's gifts with grace and gratitude, and to use them to bless the world in the spirit of love. Let's speak together some more as we recite our unison affirmation, first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this faith, and service is its prayer. In love we agree to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de nuestra fe y el servicio es su oración. En amor acordamos vivir unidos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad y ayudarnos el uno al otro. We'll take this time now to sing the youth out to their religious exploration classes. Jessica is at the back and ready to receive you. Please sing along if you know it. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace, as you go your way in peace.
Now we will attend to those joys and sorrows that some of you carry in your hearts. If you have something on your heart that is difficult to share in a public forum, Reverend Tom is always available to listen to your joy or sorrow privately. During this time of reverence and fellowship, We affirm that as a community, we share in your sorrow and rejoice in your happiness. When you come forward to share a joy or sorrow, please say your name so that we know who you are as you share. And please remember that this is live streamed so that online members or our community can share in this moment with us. Those of you online, please feel free to share in the chat any joy or sorrow that you wish. You are invited now to come forward to share a joy or sorrow with this, your faith community.
Good morning, I'm Bob Jacober. At the age of 92, every day I wake up, it's a day to celebrate. Good morning, UU Miami. I'm glad we gather here. Today the world trembles far and near. As an elder, I can give you a very good how to get old clue. When someone says let's fight, tell them all the fight will prove is that we can bleed, both me and you. The best for both of us to do, the best things we both know, let's talk without combat and in peace on our way go. When terrorists start their endless wars, they seldom suffer. They remain blameless. But for all civilians caught in them, life never is the same. Let there be peace on earth as life is meant to be, and let it begin with me. Let's tell all our representatives to declare peace.
Good morning. James Mellor. It's difficult, very, very difficult, to form a partnership with another. And once you've formed it, if you lose it, forming another partnership seems to be even more difficult. So I would like to mention a partnership that has stood the test of time and that has benefited each and every one of us here today and into the future. This partnership began 2.5 billion years ago. It's the partnership of the fungi and the green plant. When the green plant first developed the ability to produce sugar using carbon dioxide and water and sunlight, it learned it from a bacteria. It didn't invent it. But it suddenly became the center of all attention. Every living thing wanted that sugar. And so every living thing would come along and tear the plant up, and it almost drove those sugar-producing plants into extinction. Well, along came a handsome young fungi who had a deal. No language, but a few carefully chosen chemical signatures explained to the plant that it was here to help, it was here to protect, it was here to serve, if the plant would agree. And apparently the plant did agree, and they formed a partnership. And this partnership afforded the plant protection when the bacteria attacked. Penicillin was spread around for the destruction of the bacteria. And when the nematodes attacked, the tubules that are part of this fungi formed hard points and captured these little worms, which eventually ended up plant food. And when it was dry times, the fungi would link its tubes together and bring water to its companion. This has been a success story that gives us everything we eat, most of what we wear, and any prosperity that we may have. and it's been going on for 2.5 billion years. We have much to thank the two of those entities, the plant and the fungi, for. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. I'm Luigi Ferrer, and I have a great joy. Our fantastic Thanksgiving dinner here, congregational Thanksgiving dinner. We had as many people there as we have in the audience today. And we had a great time of fellowship. Before I leave, I did want to share online, Jane Thayer says, with a joy and a sorrow, her little girl is walking. So, Jane Thayer.
We share in those joys and concerns expressed and those not expressed, but very much with us.
We will now sing a hymn, number 279 in the Gray Hymnal by the Waters of Babylon. We will sing it through 3 times. Please feel free to join in the singing. For those of you who are watching our service online this morning, I invite you to take out your smartphone, open the camera app, and point it at the QR code you see on your screen. Those of you in the sanctuary are welcome to do this as well. It will open to the UU Miami donation page, or you can go to uumiami.org and click on the donate button. Please check if your donation is a one-time donation or a recurring donation. And those of you who are present in the sanctuary, there will also be a basket passed around by the lovely Zoltan. Hi, Zoltan. Today you'll have the opportunity to not only donate to this congregation, but as you have for the past couple of weeks, you can also donate to Chainless Change. Chainless Change serves those impacted by criminal justice involvement by offering basic resources, advocacy, peer support, mentorship, workforce development, housing, educational and vocational training, and scholarships. They are committed to reducing recidivism and and strengthening the fabric of society through advocacy and support for individuals and families who are negatively impacted by the criminal justice system. This congregation is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope. Please let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place and the work we do in the world, for we are now the keepers of the dream.
Well, hello? Okay. 2023 is a lot, huh? When I first started thinking about what I wanted to say today, I definitely struggled a little bit. Not just because I have some fairly complicated feelings about Trans Day of Remembrance, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also because every time I envision myself being up here talking to you, I really just, I couldn't, in good conscience, imagine not talking about what's happening in Israel and Palestine right now. But at the same time, as a trans non-binary person preaching the week of Trans Day of Remembrance, I couldn't imagine not talking about that either. So I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. Big surprise, Derrick is doing something unorthodox. And so I wrote two short-ish sermons, of which this is the first. Here we go. I have a lot of complicated feelings about the Israel-Palestine conflict. The reason I felt I had to speak on this today isn't just like a moral issue for me, or the fact that this is one of the biggest, most salient political issues of the moment, but also because I spent quite a bit of time in my undergrad and in seminary studying this issue, and I feel like what I found in those studies is really important for as many people to know as possible, especially those who are hoping to address this issue. Because what emerged from those studies more than anything else was this like historical and actually at times sort of mythological narrative that I think really kind of gets to the very core of the conflict and gives a lot of really important context to what's going on right now. So it's believed that the Jews first came to their promised land around 1800 BC, led by Abraham. Later, they would migrate to Egypt, where they settled for several centuries before being led out by Moses. And if you think, like, a lot of this comes from the Hebrew Bible, and some of you might be wondering how historically accurate that might be, and I can tell you that in my studies, there is a lot of actual, like, extra-biblical, archaeological evidence that a lot of the history, maybe not the mythological parts, but the historical parts of the Hebrew Bible is largely fairly accurate, so bear that in mind. So the Jews then returned to the land now known as Israel and Palestine in the 12th century BC, united under Saul, expanded their borders under David, and then the first temple was built in Jerusalem under David's son Solomon. And although their rule over the land diminished over time after invasions from the Assyrians and the Babylonians, the Jews remained the majority population in the land until the Romans conquered it in the year 63 BC. Revolts in 70 and 135 AD led to the destruction of the Second Temple and the expulsion of most of the Jews from the land that they believed to be their birthright. Arabs began arriving in the land in the 7th century with the rise of Islam. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad himself negotiated the Constitution of Medina, giving special privileges to the Jewish minority in the land in exchange for extra taxes. Although Muslim rule over the land only lasted a few hundred years, Muslims would remain the majority population until the late 19th century. In the 1880s, Jews began migrating to the land en masse, fleeing the persecution and brutality of the pogroms in Russia and Eastern Europe. With nationalism on the rise in Europe, political Zionism was born, the belief in the Jews' right to establish a Jewish state in the region of Palestine, emerging in large part from the writings of Theodor Herzl. Zionism garnered so much global support that in 1917, England released a document called the Balfour Declaration, which codified for the first time the Jewish right to a homeland in Palestine. A few years later, in the wake of World War II, at the Paris peace talks, the Ottoman Empire was forced to divest of all its Middle East possessions, and Palestine was made into what's called a League of Nations mandate, which basically was like a colony that's meant to become an independent nation within 30 to 50 years. So then in 1948, with the need for a Jewish state exponentially greater in the wake of the Holocaust, the United Nations proposed a partition plan that would split the land between Israel and Palestine. Arabs throughout the Middle East opposed the plan, some opposing the very idea of a Jewish state on principle, but many saying that the land apportionment was unfair and the national borders were arbitrarily drawn. Therefore, on May 14, 1948, when Zionist leader David Ben-Gurion announced the establishment of the State of Israel, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq all invaded it. Israel, of course, pushed back, taking even more land than they had originally been promised, and forcing 750,000 Palestinians out of their homes. The violence has obviously not ceased since then. During the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel occupied even more of the Palestinian territory and remains the occupying force in those territories to this day, even building Israeli settlements on the occupied territory and slowly expanding their occupation into new territory, often provoking fresh skirmishes that usually end with Israeli bombs raining down on Palestinian lands with countless innocent people in their path. So, as this narrative began to emerge in my studies, it became clear in a way it never really had before why it's one of the least cut and dry issues there is. Not just because the religious and historical roots of the conflict can create a special kind of fervor and self-righteousness around it, but it can be nearly impossible to penetrate, but because both Jew and Arab alike have very much legitimate claims over the land, as well as equally legitimate concerns for their own safety. And with legitimate concerns on all sides, there's also blood on everyone's hands. At the same time, I caution us to not treat both sides as completely equal when we consider the power differential between the two in modern times. Yes, Hamas and Hezbollah are reprehensible terrorist organizations that target innocent people without remorse. And the death and destruction they cause often pales in comparison to that of Israeli military might. These terrorist organizations are in many ways a symptom of a people who feel completely and utterly helpless to end their own oppression and destruction at the hands of an occupying force. They're responding out of fear just as much as Israelis' occupation and heavy-handed military responses to Palestinian attacks are a fear response built on literal millennia of genocide and diaspora. Of course, that doesn't excuse anyone on any side for evil acts, but it's important to keep in mind nonetheless. So, why am I telling you this? Because we are people of faith. We are people of religious liberty. We are pluralistic and multi-religious. And not only that, but as much as we may not want to admit it sometimes, we are all children of Abraham. We may not be Jews or Muslims or even Christians, but we do share a common heritage with them all through our roots of Unitarian Christianity and Christian Universalism. All of the children of Abraham, Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, are our spiritual cousins. Jewish issues, Christian issues, Muslim issues, they're all our issues because we are all family. As many of us may have learned this weekend, you may not always agree with your family. You may not even always like your family. In fact, sometimes family is broken, abusive, violent, but family shapes who you are, for better or worse. And in this, as in all things, context is king, particularly historical context. As we engage in acts of healing centered around this conflict, understanding the historical context is so important. Arabs have been oppressed, persecuted, and massacred throughout their history, and Palestinian Arabs have been living for generations under a brutal occupation that has been repeatedly referred to by human rights scholars as an open-air prison. The United Nations themselves have openly referred to what is happening in the Palestinian territories as genocide. The Jews, meanwhile, have also been oppressed, persecuted, and massacred throughout their history, chased out of just about every place they've ever settled, staring extinction dead in the face in the early 20th century, and continuing to face rampant anti-Semitism to this day. It's perhaps then no wonder that both groups continue to perpetuate these cycles of intensely fear-driven responses in their conflict with one another. I don't have any answers to all of this. No one does, really. But I do feel strongly about the importance of understanding and honoring these deeply complex realities as we engage with Jews and Muslims in the work of healing. Assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem, peace be with you. Amen.
أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת. שבת שלום.
شبت شلom. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآل سيدنا محمد. وآل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وآل سيدنا إبراهيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's the law. You have to do it 5 times a day.
قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق من شر غاسق إذا وقب من شر النفاثات في العقد.
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם
اللهم صل على سيدنا
המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Tragedy is the Palestinians and the Jews are so much alike.
How's that?
All through history, no one's wanted either of them.
By the way, before I continue, I should have mentioned before, that was a clip from the TV series The West Wing, in case anybody was wondering. One of my favorite shows. I have a lot of complicated feelings about Transgender Day of Remembrance. Trans people have 2 days dedicated to us on the calendar each year. Trans Day of Visibility and Trans Day of Remembrance. A day to honor the fact that we, well, exist. And a day to honor how many of us are dying each year, many of whom were killed for being trans. Both of these are so very important for our community, but both also kind of leave something to be desired for many of us, which is why some have taken to reframing Trans Day of Visibility to Trans Day of Thriving, or Trans Day of buying us a damn pizza because we're tired, y'all. This week I saw a Facebook post touting the week of Trans Day of Remembrance as Trans Week of Joy. That's a holiday that I can definitely get behind. Some of my greatest joys as a non-binary person come from seeing members of our community thriving in the public eye in spite of the rampant transphobia they undoubtedly face on a regular basis. From Eddie Izzard to Elliot Page, from Janelle Monáe to Miley Cyrus to Sam Smith, more and more non-binary people are coming out of the closet and living as they truly are. But some of my biggest non-binary heroes are some of the slightly lesser known ones. 3 of them in particular have been involved with some of my favorite TV shows. And if you've seen me preach in the past, you know that sometimes TV shows can be sort of a sacred text for me. And they're also some of the most important shows in terms of LGBTQ representation. For example, Lachlan Watson played a character originally named Susie on Netflix's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and actually used their experiences as a genderqueer person to shape the character and narrative as Susie transitioned to a trans boy named Theo in the middle of the series. N.D. Stevenson is another favorite of mine, a graphic novelist who recently created and produced one of my favorite TV shows of all time, definitely a sacred text, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power on Netflix, which features a diverse array of LGBTQ characters, including a non-binary character. Much like another of my non-binary heroes, Rebecca Sugar, who created and produced one of the most important TV shows for LGBTQ representation, Steven Universe. Interesting how animation seems so far ahead of everybody else sometimes. But it really gives me hope, you know, that one day maybe I might be able to add my own name to that list. Representation and culture is such an important part of the LGBTQ struggle and has really helped me immensely on my own personal path. But more than anything, what got me to this point was my communities of support. Growing up, I always knew I was somehow different, but life in the weirdly patriarchal, superficial culture of my lovely hometown of Miami never really gave me the space I needed to really explore what that meant. Sure, I found communities here and there that supported my being who I was, but it wasn't until I moved to Berkeley and started my time at Starr King School for the Ministry that I really found a community of truly radical acceptance and support, which encouraged me to blossom and explore every facet of my identity. People who encouraged me to wear bright colors and pretty things and start painting my nails, although I forgot to paint my nails yesterday. I was very upset. And growing my hair, and most importantly, to embrace my sweetness, my softness, and my vulnerability. And don't get me wrong, it's still a struggle for me every time I want to put on a skirt or some fishnet stockings. But I am eternally grateful for the people who wholeheartedly encouraged and supported me in discovering who I really was, and more importantly, who I wanted to be. I pray that in my lifetime we can cultivate a world where everyone is given the space and support to become who they truly are and who they want to be. And that's, for me, that's an important element that I feel gets lost. A lot of the time, we hear the phrase, born this way, a lot, and with good reason. For those who identify with that, it is so important, so affirming. But there's also a part of me that's always felt like that phrase, in some important ways, kind of a response to bad faith rhetoric about queer and trans folks being unnatural somehow. And the truth is, for me and for others that I know, gender and sexuality can be very fluid and often has a lot to do with choice. And there's nothing wrong with that. Choice is agency, and everyone should be free to choose who they are, who they share themselves with, free to experiment with identity, love, and sex, free from the attacks of those who consider those choices unnatural, free to choose joy. In a world of J.K. Rowling's and Dave Chappelle's, choosing joy is a radical act for the trans community. Choosing to celebrate who we are in all our wholeness in a world that constantly tells us to be half of ourselves is revolutionary. And choosing who we are is even more radical and revolutionary. Choosing who we are is an act of creation. I truly believe that we are all divine co-creators of ourselves and our world, joining with God in the wondrous, holy act of creating our universe and our reality. There is no limit to our powers of creation, and when we put them to use, I believe God is filled with just as much joy as we are. This week, I invite you to think about what you can do to support and encourage a trans person to be their most radically unapologetic whole self. Think about how you can help cultivate a world where every single person has the space, support, and encouragement to be as fully and wholly themselves as they want to be. And because setting examples is so very important, I invite you to think about how you can be your most radically authentic self. It could mean the world to someone you know, or someone you don't. May it be so.
Our special music today is a song from the Justice Choir songbook that the choir sang about a year ago, I think. It's called Courage to Be Who We Are, written by Ruth Huber in memory of a trans woman named Gwen Araujo. Gwen Araujo was a 17-year-old trans woman murdered by 4 men for being trans in Newark, California in 2002. Derrick didn't know this song before. I chose it myself, and I think the words fit very well in their sermon. So please enjoy Courage to Be Who We Are. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are standing in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are standing in the memory of those who have fallen, standing for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are singing in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are singing in the memory of those who have fallen, singing for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are.
Ooh. I did actually know the name of it, but I wasn't thinking about it when I was writing my sermon. That's just one of those things, the synchronicity of worship. Pretty cool. Okay, now we have some announcements and gratitudes. First, I want to thank all of the professional and volunteer staff, the church board, our committees, Cheryl, our business manager, our child care workers, Luce, our yoga instructor, Steve Snyder for cleaning and upkeep on our facilities and for running our sound and live stream today in my place, as I am unavailable. Joseph Toledo for accompanying our hymns. Toledo or Toledo? Yes. Yes. Perfect. For accompanying our hymns and providing wonderful music. I have to say I've never heard the Velvet Underground in church before, and that was quite a delight. Alex Kolaitzi for leading us in song and for the perfect special music. Jessica Lamb, our Director of Religious Exploration, for teaching our children. Our greeter, I believe, is Luigi Ferrer back there. No, it's Zoltan. Zoltan, and everybody's saying it's somebody else. Zoltan, John, somebody back there was greeting our wonderful. Yes, we'll get to that. And finally, all of you for joining us this morning, everyone on live stream, which is probably one less because my grandpa's here in the building. And please watch your weekly email newsletter, and please share your thoughts and photos through the UU Miami Facebook page, and you can visit our website for upcoming online programming. And we have a few announcements. There is not technically lunch, but as we've heard already, Mark Cassis and Terry Lohman brought us a nice sugary snack. Oh, it was just Terry. Never mind. He watched. So we do have that. No full lunch, but there is a snack back there. Next Wednesday, our book club will meet at 7 p.m. in the Emerson Room to discuss On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World by Danya Ruttenberg. Hope I pronounced that right. Next Sunday is Covenant Sunday. Ooh. where Reverend Tom Cappo will be back in the pulpit talking about how we covenant with one another. Such an important topic. Really, really looking forward to that one. Wednesday, December 6th, in the Emerson Room, we will be holding our annual Blue Christmas at 6:30 p.m. for folks who may not have their people within reach to celebrate the holidays, or really anyone who wants to come join in the holiday fellowship. Sunday, December 10th at 6:30 p.m. right here in the sanctuary, I believe, will be our children's holiday pageant, which is always a lot of fun and looks like it might be featuring puppets this year, perhaps. So come and find out. And now for our closing hymn, Alex.
Our closing hymn today is number 155 in the gray hymnal, Circle Round for Freedom. We will sing it through twice. Please feel free to stand in body or spirit and join in the singing. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
In the spirit of love, I invite you to turn around and greet one another. Find those you don't know or don't know well and make a special effort to greet them first. And those of you online, please let us know who you are in the chat so we can reach out to you. Thank you. Go in peace.